So now when we go to the movies, do we have to have homework? That's the thing that's been surprising me lately because a lot of times when you're going to go see it, people pump out a list of things you need to see. And that unfortunately happens to a lot of Marvel fans. Now, I'm not going to sit there and complain about it because everyone knows if you watch this channel, I love MCU movies, but I've been here from the beginning, so it's a lot different. But what happens to the casual fans? And this all came up because my sister wanted to see Brand New Day and was very excited with my niece and nephew to take them. And I was like, all right. She went and Googled a list. I went through the list and I was like, yeah, these are pretty good. I told her mainly like the Peter Parker ones that really matter because, that's what matters. And she was like, okay, cool. And then she calls me after the movie. She's asking if there's an end credit scene. I'm like, you're not going to get it, so whatever. Again, that kind of sucks for a viewer. But then after that, she calls me again and she's like, who is this Black Widow? And then I thought to myself, so wait, it sucks kind of for people that are casual. I mean, I wouldn't say casual, but I mean casual as a moviegoer that says, hey, I like Marvel stuff. I'll check it out. She grew up in a home full of Marvel stuff. She grew up with me, my dad, my brother, all of us obsessed with Marvel stuff. And she doesn't know enough in the movies nowadays because she doesn't keep up with everything. She'll watch some things. I hate that she doesn't watch them in like the right order or will skip around. Like she was going to jump from, or she already watched Far From Home and No Way Home before she watched Infinity War and Endgame, Infinity War, whatever. I just was like, there's tolls that you'll understand the pay, there's payoffs. You can't do this. I almost started shouting on the phone and text. But my whole point was, it is kind of hard because it's like they don't know exactly. You have to exactly like there is a structure kind of, but you also have to kind of look it up. So what was crazy is she's like calling me the second time. She's like, who is this Black Widow girl? And I'm like, what? Like, she knows Black Widow's dead. She's been dead since, Infinity War. And she's like, how's there another Black Widow? So I realized that in the homework, there's nothing that discusses Black Widow. And to be honest, you don't really need to know that homework to quite understand why Black Widow is the way she is in it. But at the same time, you do kind of just need to know, why is this girl Black Widow, basically. But they don't really call her Black Widow. I think they just mainly call her Yelena. But they must have did something to tip her off that it was Black Widow, because she said to me, who is this new Black Widow? So with that being said, is it a big part of the movie that would ruin the whole movie for her? No, I don't think so. But I think to a casual that wants to kind of enjoy more of the Marvel, not someone that just pops in a movie, they have a weekend off, and they're like, I'm just going to catch this movie. Someone that's like, I know somewhat of Marvel, like, I think I could just jump into this. It seems like you can't really just straight, like, jump into it. It actually does take work, because I laid it all out for her. I'm like, okay, you have to watch the Black Widow movie. In the Black Widow movie, she has to go back and basically meet with her fam. Know that it takes place before Infinity War, so she's already dead at this point, but this is all previous. She meets her and Yelena make up. Yelena is her younger sister. At the end of the movie, end credit scene, Yelena basically is sent to go kill Hawkeye by Valentina, who you have no clue it is. And Valentina goes, and we get the Hawkeye series. And then at the Hawkeye series, she appears many times, and she finally has a moment with Hawkeye where they both are okay with everything, and the Black Widow thing's over. And then she kind of becomes Black Widow because out of nowhere, she's been used by this Valentina lady, and with this Valentina lady, we've been getting her being like corrupting other villainish heroes, and then she creates the Thunderbolts. So there's the Thunderbolts movie, and then they're all almost killed in that, and then they come together and they're tricked at the end to be the new Avengers. So they're basically the Avengers now. And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Well, with the Z, the Avengers with the Z now." So it seems like there's a lot just explaining that one simple scenario, and it's just a hard hard spot to be in, because I understand being like, I could look over this or whatever, but you could honestly look over Yelena's part, but for someone that kind of wants to invest a little bit into it, I don't know if I should have said, hey, Black Widow's gonna be in it, you should watch these. But at the same time, I don't know. So I don't know in the future how they could go about this, because now I'm thinking, like, for us it's great. For us that's been there from the beginning, it's awesome. You watch Iron Man, you see Nick Fury, and then it goes on and on and on, and Marvel just kept expanding on it, and it just worked. But I don't want people to have to do continuity homework, because now I've been seeing people lay the groundwork for posts like, here's what you need to watch to get ready for Doomsday. People shouldn't really have to watch stuff to just jump into a movie, and that kind of sucks. But at the same time, for us big fans, we're happy, we're rewarded, it's a big deal for us, so we get a huge payoff. And it's almost like this homework almost seems necessary for even the little bit lower of a big fan. Maybe not person, because there was a time where we would watch movies and they almost had to have homework on the comics to understand the character. Now Marvel's moved away to not being the traditional characters so much as they were, for example, Yondu. If people were like, who's this Yondu guy? I'd be like, don't even read a Yondu story. He's nothing like he is in the comic. And that's fine. But for some stuff in the beginning, we would have to be like, I would say prior MCU, you'd be like, you need to read the comic for this and that, this, who this guy is, because there was no other movies before it or whatever. But now they were kind of smart and changed things up a little bit where they didn't really have this quite history. And Star-Lord, even, for example, wasn't how Star-Lord acted. He was just Chris Pratt, basically, a Star-Lord. It was great. It worked. But if you read the comics with him, Star-Lord was not that way at all. But it's still tough because we want to reward longtime fans. You've been here from the beginning. You want to have your oh my god moments. And it was cool to see Yelena pop up in Brand New Day. And it's just one of those things that's like, I don't want it to tip the balance, and from where we're going on from now on, that we have to worry about having catch up for people like this in our family, our friends that aren't die hard like us, but also like want to see it. Like, we follow this whole universe from the beginning, and it's just rough, I think, for people to get into stuff. And then I know people that have girlfriends and stuff, they put it on TikTok. I'm having my girlfriend or my wife watch the whole MCU cinematic universe. And sometimes they're not happy with everything. Sometimes they're blown away. Sometimes I think they're overacting and they're like crying over some stuff. But trust me, there are things to cry about in the MCU. Even bad things. But some stuff you could actually also skip over. There's like the first phase 1, I honestly think you could skip Hulk. And that's not to be a dick, but because I don't really care for it that much, and Edward Norton, but not much happens in that story that actually really matters to me thinking about it. If you watch She-Hulk in the future, you might get Abomination, but you don't really need explanation for that. Thunderbolt doesn't do much that needs explanation. Future, Edward Norton's Bruce Banner, so you'd get more confused if you watched it. So that's one of the movies, like if you were watching the phases, I say if you don't really care for Hulk that much, you could see a really cool fight scene at the end with Abomination. That's awesome. But it's not, to me, the greatest movie, and it's kind of boring if you're trying to get through all these movies. There's a lot better movies basically out there. But there might be other people that think, you could skip the first Avenger because it's basically Steve just waking up. But he does have the connection to, I want to call her Peggy Carter, but Carter, and he does have that connection with her, so you'll miss that out. But honestly, it all starts for him that we know he's a man at a time. Me personally, I really like First Avenger. For some reason, I heard a lot of people don't like First Avenger, and that's kind of odd to me because it's a timepiece, and I love timepieces that are done like that, especially from the director of The Rocketeer. I think it did really good. But you kind of got to know like which movies matter, which shows are important, and that's a huge thing now. So people have to actually watch shows. And after she got on this journey of Spider-Man, me kind of directing her through things, I said Loki's journey would be really cool to watch, I think. And I started listing things out, and I started talking about Thor's. And she, again, everyone will hate that I like Ragnarok, because for some reason that's hated a lot. But I talk about like Ragnarok's kind of the pivot where he starts to change. And then she saw Infinity War and sees him disappear in the Cosmic Cube and has no clue what's going on. And then she's like, he has a TV show, right? She's like, I saw a couple episodes, like when my other brother and sister were watching. They were pretty good. It's like, you can't just jump around like that. You have to like follow this red bouncing ball to follow Loki's journey. So it's almost like every character that is, pretty useful in the MCU, you do kind of got to follow. Or if it's like Avengers, I guess, you have to follow somewhat stuff will lead up to other things. But, I mean, do things matter at some points? No, but then at the same time, like, to understand Yelena a little bit, you do got to watch Hawkeye and understand what she goes through. And not to mention, she's hilarious in the TV series. And I actually like the Hawkeye TV series, and kind of bummed out he didn't come back for season 2 because they weren't giving him enough money. So that kind of sucks. But it is what it is. But when movies introduce characters, I think, that's fine. they could come with the new movie that they're watching and they're okay with it and they don't get confused or anything. They might want to know more about that character, but that's about it. Like my wife or son may be like, who's this person or who's that? And that makes sense. And that's not something that affects the movies. But I think honestly, it's really, really hard. It's a really hard dynamic that I came across thinking about this. It's just, you don't want to lose all this knowledge we have and all this fun we've had on this long, long ride. And you don't want to be taken away from you. You don't want all these cool things that we watch that stick together and reward us in a way. But then at the same time, we want to be able to have like a sibling, be able to go watch it and enjoy it. And you're excited. They're going to see it. Take my niece and nephew. And she thought she did all the homework she needed and she didn't catch up. So it's like, nowadays, do you have to do a lot of homework? It's to see an MCU movie now. Do you have to do a lot of homework before you see it? And I would say the answer is yes, because most movies are not internals. Thank God they're not internals. But most movies have history to it if it's not a brand new movie coming out. It's not like watching Shang-Chi and you're like, okay, yeah, you got to watch quite a bit of movies. So when you're watching quite a bit of movies, you kind of got homework to do. You have life, you have kids, whatever. So she tried to make this all work. My sister did try to make this all happen to just see Brand New Day. And then she comes back with phone calls of who is this new Black Widow. So the idea of that is it's a lot to go, wow, there's a whole level of this that I had to break down, from her being into, Black Widow's movie, from her being into Hawkeye's TV show, and then going to the Thunderbolts, and then where she's at now. She's coming out in Doomsday. It's a long story that actually plays a real important part. Is she an important part in the movie? Not so much, but it's kind of cool to have her there for us longtime people. It's cool for us, but for her, she just was confused now because she let it slide, of course, but she just was kind of like, what the hell's going on? And it just made me think, like, what is this? What's going to happen like when we keep going further and further? So I think like there's two levels we could go at it. Like level one would be like, you could watch the movies from the beginning, like all of us do. We know the important characters are, we understand what they want. We know the conflict. And that goes for everyone, for casuals. They could just understand all that basically. They don't have any questions about the story flow or what's going on. Just like her watching Brand New Day, it did pay off to watch the Spider-Man stuff, but I do think you could kind of walk in Brand New Day just knowing he lost everything. But to get the emotion, to understand the struggle, it is better to watch all the movies. And then I think the other levels for us long-term fans is to recognize references, understanding the history, the Easter eggs, the nice little sweet spots for us, the emotional significance. That's the big thing for watching Brand New Day. You should watch every Spider-Man appearance because it does all build up. And I've made a Spider-Man series that I really do talk about how much it all matters to see Peter's journey, to why all that mattered to get to Brand New Day. It wasn't a throwaway series. It meant a lot. It was a lot of character development, like one of my favorite words I always use. And that should be kind of what the hardcore fan gets out of it, is that we've been around for all this, but we get all these little references and things like that, and that's cool. But then when it comes to other people, they could be okay with it. Now, on that note, does that mean we remove Yelena to be okay for casuals? No, it's okay. It's something that's going to happen. It's something that's going to happen, and it's going to happen like this, where my sister's going to ask and I have to explain, but I just didn't think about how much I had to explain to get to where she's at now. Because I'm basically like, yeah, she's an Avenger. And I guess I could leave it at that, but she's confused. She's like, I saw Black Widow die. Like, who's this Black Widow? So that's kind of a thing where it's like, oh man, like, there's a whole story behind Yelena. And it's actually a really good story for Yelena. I'm not the biggest Black Widow movie fan. I really hated how they did Taskmaster. But on top of it, like, Yelena has actually a really good story arc. And I kind of want her to watch her story arc. I think she's humorous and very entertaining, but at the same time, I'm like, does she care to watch her now? Maybe she liked her just from that scene. I don't know, but the whole thing is like, now it's just odd because it's like, okay, how do we please everybody? And like that scene, would you take it out? Not really. You don't need to, and it might just have to come down to the fact that people will just have to fool people in on these small things. Like her seeing Punisher, she knows Punisher. She grew up with Punisher. She knows she may have not, I don't think she's watched any of the Punisher series, but when she sees him, she knows what he does. She knows that he's appeared in the Spider-Man cartoons. She knows that he's in Marvel. It's enough where she could get by and doesn't need to know anything. And I think that works for Punisher in general in that movie. All the kids that didn't get to watch the rated R, basically, Netflix show, they didn't miss a beat when they saw Frank pop up in the middle of a Spider-Man movie. There's nothing that really connected to it. They did do a little bit of him looking at MJ looking at the family in the cupboard, which is enough to kind of give us and maybe a casual viewer that he had a troubling past, and that's enough to kind of see, but we don't really need to dive into that because it's a Spider-Man movie. So I think things like that work, and of course the Hulk's so famous, Hulk showing up, it doesn't do anything. It ruined everything for everybody. Like, I don't think Marvel should dumb anything down. I just think it needs to make some stories self-efficient in a way, where self-sufficient, where it kind of can work in a certain type of way. But again, it's such a long journey that we've been on that I think it's to the point where, like I said, people are making lists. You got this many days, or you have to take this many hours to catch up and watch everything for Doomsday. And granted, we, most of us hardcore fans already seen all the movies, but for someone that maybe just got into it, which is weird that someone gets into it like right now, but again, my sister watched a few, but they're all over. But let's say she wants to watch Doomsday. She has a long, long road to watch the Doomsday. Now, could you say cut out Iron Man because Iron Man's not going to play a part in it? But then it's like, wait, Robert Downey Jr. is playing Doom. We don't know quite the story yet. As far as the Iron Man movie, it shouldn't really matter. But then we go to the Thor movie. Does that really matter? Not really, because it doesn't deal with anything that happens in Doomsday. But at the same time, do you want them to know their history? Do you want them to know their knowledge? Do you want to know that passion and all that? So, I'm not against like continuity. I love it. I love it when it works and it's efficient, but I'm not against it. I'm not against watching previous movies. I'm not against, references for us. I'm not, it doesn't make me mad that they reward us, all of us longtime fans, to see all these characters in one movie and how awesome it is. But, that's a big part of what I love, of course, about the MCU. But I just feel bad that some people have to complete an assignment to watch a movie. And I feel like even if you do, like, she did her homework and then she still was like lost. And it's a small part, so I get it. It's a small part, but it made me more wanting to talk about it because it's crazy that Yelena is literally in it for like 5 minutes and then a phone call or something. I don't know. And with all that being said, she was intrigued by her, and it's crazy because that character in that 5 minute, 10-minute guest spot has a whole big history of at least 3 movies at least for right now, and coming up in Doomsday. It has a really interesting past, a great story, a lot of good things. So I just don't know what's going to quite happen. And this makes me go back to where I talked about Secret Wars, where we're getting this whole Kevin Feige doesn't want to call it a reboot. He wants to call it a reset. The first thing he called it said he was wiping the slate clean. He said everything was going to change. And that was, I haven't took the time to look it up, but I know it happened. That he went and he took time to, I took time a while ago that he said something about that, like it was just a clean slate. So I was like, all right, that's kind of weird, but I get it because everyone's gone now. But I can only imagine someone that watched, like my sister, watching Infinity War and Endgame, she watched. And then I made her watch it because of Spider-Man. And then she watches Doomsday out of nowhere. You'd be confused as hell. Like, I thought Steve Rogers went back in time and is like, yeah, but he came back. If you watch Loki, it kind of connects with this and the timelines. And that's why Loki's going to show up with the TVA. And if you watch Wolverine Deadpool, the TVA were a big part of it. So it's kind of one of those things that it's almost a double-edged sword for casual fans or even new fans to get into. You really got to now do your homework. I also want, it'd be nice to have my sister be able to sit down and watch a Spider-Man movie without doing, a ton of homework. But at the same time, I get that's just how it is now. But I just wonder if there's ever going to be a time where we're going to have these movies. Like a good example, and it sucks, is Eternals, where you go watch a movie that is a Marvel movie, but it kind of stands enough alone. It stands really, really alone that we don't have to worry about, did you see this before? Did you see this after? But at the same time, I think we enjoy the movies that connect more, the ones that have someone in it because of this, or have one because of that, or whatever it is. And people hate Captain Marvel. I don't mind it, but it has the scrolls, and then the scrolls get moved over here, and they're in a really bad show called Secret Invasion. There's a lot of bad stuff, I guess, going on. But basically, there's a lot of things that jump around to here and there, and it sucks. You really shouldn't need a syphilis to go and see a movie. But I think, unfortunately, we're at that point now. But my thing I'm trying to get to now is with Secret Wars. When they launch it, will there be a point that when we go forward with the X-Men saga, basically, and I hope it's not just X-Men, I hope we still keep Marvel going, Doctor Strange going, all that going, do we have to have all the homework before Doomsday and all that? Do we need to have all that to understand what happened and what is going on? Or could a new viewer or casual viewer just start watching, maybe just an X-Men lover, just wants to watch X-Men. They hate everything else, which would be blasphemy, but they just want to watch X-Men, and then they put it on and they can just watch it and not worry about anything tying to anything else. The only thing maybe they have to go to is Brand New Day to see Jean's origin, I guess. But to be honest, it doesn't play a part in the X-Men story. It just looks like, a story of hers, of maybe one of her first outings and her first dilemma she had as a mutant. But we never heard the word mutant, we never heard anything like that, so maybe you don't need to watch it. So that's what I'm curious about, is if with the new reboot that he said it was, now he said it's a soft reset, and it's going to start with the X-Men, how they're going to get them in the world, I have no idea still. I wish we had somewhat of an idea, but that's the whole point of us getting to see the movies. But I would love to know how they're going to make it work. I thought they were going to just drift them over from the Fox universe, and that's how we got mutants, because they were never in the MCU universe, and then we got them in the Fox universe, and they got merged with us, so then we're going to get most of those characters, but then that doesn't work because all of them are so much older, and it's just a whole headache thing. But I just don't want it to be too much homework for people like my sister to watch these movies. But at the same time, I don't know what else to do. Like I said, you could do it at two levels, or you're doing it where they understand the story, understand all this stuff, in the middle and all that, and at the same time give us what we want, our Easter eggs, our throwbacks, all that. But sometimes you're gonna throw a character in that people don't know and maybe a little obscure. If she watched the Thunderbolts and I had her watch it, she would only probably know who Bucky is. So it to me, it seems like it takes a lot of work to be a casual Marvel fan now, and or a casual fan of movies in general if it's a franchise. But unless you're watching like James Bond, or I don't know if Mission Impossible is continue. I'm not the biggest fan of them, but I know James Bonds really don't have continuation that happens. But ultimately, it's just one of those things that I don't know if it's a thing that can be fixed, or do we even want it fixed, because it's really awesome for us hardcore fans. So I don't know. That's just what I was thinking. Yeah, if you have any thoughts about it, let me know. I know most of you will probably be with me, like screw the casuals and just let us keep getting that good stuff. But it's just kind of rough when it's someone like your sister coming to you like, who's this person? I'm like, oh my god, you don't know who this person is, and I have to break it all down. So is that going to be an issue? That's my main concern.